Houston. The humidity's up, the heat is on, as George Bush and Dan Quayle make their case to the convention and the country for honoring them with 4 more years. Tonight's the night President Bush officially accepts renomination and hopes to make an acceptance speech that will fire up the party faithful while attracting, holding Democrats who voted for Reagan Bush and then Bush Quayle. So, welcome to Houston on what's certain to be a pivotal night in Campaign 92.
Campaign 92, the Republican National Convention. Live from the Astrodome in Houston, Texas, here is Dan Rather.
Good evening and welcome to the home of the Dome, and for these Republicans tonight, the House of Hope. Here on the floor of the 1992 Republican National Convention, these Republican delegates feel it. They think they smell it. The Bush-Quayle team cutting in to Clinton's lead. Headlines of the hour. President Bush in his acceptance speech tonight will propose, he will promise, a tax cut in January, early next year, if he is reelected. The Clinton campaign already responding. You couldn't believe him the last time when he said no new taxes. Why would you believe him this time? Also a headline, unemployment claims higher today. They announced figures than they have been in a very long time. Now, the hope of these Republican delegates is in 3 categories. Number one, the hope that President Bush tonight can deliver the speech of his life and put the Bush-Quayle team out front, on top to stay. Number two, they're hoping that President Bush will attack Iraq sometime over the next 10 days to 2 weeks. Number three, they're hoping, the delegates tell me, that some what they call, quote, personal information, new personal information will come out on Governor Clinton sometime soon. Those are their hopes. Now, the latest CBS News New York Times poll indicates that there's some validity to the Republicans' claim that their framework around the campaign, which they worked so hard to have happen at this convention, a framework of family values, is cutting in to the Clinton campaign's framework, which is basically will provide jobs, new business, and help for the economy. With more about the poll, we go up to the podium and our chief Washington correspondent, Bob Schieffer. Bob, good evening.
Well, thank you, Dan. Our pollsters have been polling all week, and we feel tonight we do have enough data in to make some judgments about how this convention is working. And apparently the news is pretty good for George Bush. He is closing the margin on Bill Clinton. Let's look at the numbers. At the beginning of the week, the president was 18 points behind in the horse race numbers. Clinton over 55%. That has now closed to 51 for Clinton, 40 for the president, a difference of 11 points. So what has happened so far seems to be working for the president. Again, we're finding that kind of odd thing, though, in these numbers, in that while the president is closing the gap, what people think of President Bush does not seem to be changing. He had an approval rating of just 39% at the start of this week. It stayed relatively the same, virtually no change at all. And when you look at another statistic, you understand why the president is in trouble. He had only a 14% approval rating on his handling of the economy as the week started. He's gotten that up to 18%, but that is not very much to write home about. What these numbers suggest, Dan, just what you were saying. The president's got to make a very good speech tonight if he's going to get the kind of bounce he needs to come out of this convention and make this a competitive race. Dan?
Thanks, Bob. Over in the Washington delegation is Ed Bradley. Ed, in effect, what President Bush must do tonight is reinvent himself. Put himself forward as a principal agent of change and a man who will be a different kind of president next time around. How many times can he reinvent himself?
Well, Dan, I think he's going to have to do it at least one more time if he wants to be president of this country. You know, these campaigns are sort of like trains that are ready to leave the station. These people here, they're the true believers. They're already on board. But what the president has to do is to convince the people out there that they have some reason to get on board the Bush train. And he has to start it with his speech tonight. And one of the things that's sort of ironic is that you've got a man who has spent most of his life in public service, the last 12 years in a very visible position, who has to define himself to the American public, to tell people what's in here, what he believes in, where he stands on the issues, particularly on the economy. And I think, Dan, one thing you keep in mind that this night is the first day of a period that will define the rest of George Bush's life. Dan?
Thanks, Ed. Over with the Tar Heels in North Carolina is Connie Chung. And Connie, I think it's pretty generally accepted that if George Bush and Dan Quayle can't carry North Carolina in the coming election, they will be hasta la vista, baby. What does it look like over there?
Well, Dan, North Carolina is a state that George Bush whipped Dukakis in 1988. Just last week, Clinton was leading George Bush in the South by 14 percentage points. But now our latest polling shows that just 3 days into the convention, Bush is running dead even with Clinton. That is the first regional crack in Clinton's national lead. Now, in the South, Bush supporters are mostly white, they're mostly male, they're mostly evangelical. But these are tough economic times. And George Bush needs to pull ahead and stay ahead in the South. And the way he can do that is to prove that he's going to do for the economy what he did for Desert Storm. That's not going to be easy because Clinton, this year, as opposed to the '88 candidate, is from the South. He has an economic message, and he feels perfectly comfortable in a Baptist church. So, Dan, what George Bush is going to have to do is he's going to have to become commander-in-chief of the economy. Dan?
Thanks, Connie. A footnote. Senator Jesse Helms came from way behind in the last United States Senate race in North Carolina, way behind to a come-from-behind victory, using primarily what the Democrats saw as a race-based final advertising campaign. Up in our CBS News anchor booth, we're on the floor. Up in the anchor booth way back there is United States Senator Bob Dole. Senator, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Why is it that after 12 years in national office and 4 presidential campaigns, George Bush is still having to tell us who he is?
Well, I think the times have changed, and I think had the economy not gone down the tubes, we wouldn't be doing this tonight. But President Bush has to convince the American people with a credible, constructive message that he understands the problem and he's going to have a plan to solve it, and he's ready to do it.
Well, Senator, the 1988 Bush campaign wasn't always kind to Mrs. Dole, and that angered you deeply. Now Hillary Clinton is the target. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm not certain she'll be a target from President Bush. I'm not certain Elizabeth, my wife, was in 1988. But it's, my view is they ought to stick. There are going to be some negative campaigning, but we ought to be constructive. We ought to be positive. We ought to be telling American people where we're going to go the next 4 years. And I think that's what President Bush has in mind tonight.
Senator, as you know, from having seen the advance of President Bush's speech, he's promising that he'll cut taxes next year if he's reelected. Number one, since he said no new taxes in 1988, why should anyone believe him this time?
Well, he's talking about cutting taxes, not raising taxes. And he's also saying, which I think is very responsible, he's not going to cut taxes unless we pay for the tax cuts. And I give him an A+ for that. We don't need to add to the deficit. If we're going to have a tax cut, let's pay for it in some way. So if that's his message, then I agree with it, and I think the American people will.
Senator, you've got one of the toughest warm-up acts I can imagine tonight. Give us a preview. Are you going to dial back a little from what we might call the harsher kind of political attack in order to tee up President Bush's speech, or is it going to be some fire and brimstone?
No, I'm going to take a few little shots, but nothing serious. You know, you have to have a few little shots to keep the crowd going, but I'm going to be positive about President Bush and what I know about President Bush and why I believe he has a positive record and why the American people ought to focus on his speech, which follows, I guess, a 5-minute film after I speak and then the president. So he's the key speaker. I'm just a warm-up. As you said, I'm the warm-up guy.
Senator Dole, thanks for being with us tonight. We appreciate it very much. Our CBS News coverage of the Republican National Convention will continue from the floor of the Astrodome in just a moment.
Caught you doing 70.
Color Tile store-wide summer clearance is almost over. There's up to 50% off.
Vinyl tile, half price.
Ceramic tile, half price.
Mini blinds, buy one, get 3 free.
Wall covering, $2.99. DuPont Stainmaster carpet, up to 50% off.
Oh, wood floors, up to 50% off. Last chance.
Up to 50% off ceramic tile.
Vinyl floors.
And Stainmaster carpet.
Color Tile store-wide summer clearance.
Final week.
Coast to coast.
Save up to 50%.
Sale ends Monday.
Everyone calls me father. And I love a kid's cereal.
Brave adults wrestle with the notion that Kellogg's Frosted Flakes is just for kids.
I work with tigers. I never thought I'd love one.
That delectable frosting, that incredible crunch. No wonder adults never outgrow the taste.
Oh, I'm guilty. Guilty. Guilty.
It's no crime. Frosted Flakes have the taste adults have grown to love. They're great.
Tonight, Ted's treating the kids to a ball game, so I'm treating myself to a night off. I stopped off for some fresh lettuce, a juicy beefsteak tomato, and shrimp from Tony's. Kissed everyone goodbye and said hello to a big salad topped with something kind of different. Sort of sweet, yet really tangy. Healthy sensation, honey Dijon. And I had dinner with someone I'd like to get better acquainted with. Me.
Healthy sensation, a healthy attitude, a sensational taste.
No lines longer than your flight. No.
I can't seem to find your reservation.
No incomprehensible contracts. No heaters stuck on high in August. No hidden charges. And no lemons. National. No problem.
If they want to change America, they come to us to talk to you. CBS This Morning with Harry Smith and Paula Zahn.
Why did New York explode on a hot summer night? A casualty of the war on drugs or alleged police brutality? An all-new Street Stories returns next Thursday.
You know, a lot of men think that they're smarter than us, braver than us, stronger than us. Well, let me tell you, ladies, men only have one thing we don't. The remote control. So grab it and watch Franny's Turn.
Franny's Turn, Saturdays this fall on CBS.
It's one giant click for womankind.
Welcome to Middle Ages premieres Thursday, September 3rd.
A pep rally atmosphere, the atmosphere of maybe a Notre Dame pep rally here on the floor of the convention. Music plays an important part of that. And Bob Schieffer, up on the podium, you said the other day that in one of these conventions, nothing happens by accident. It's about as much spontaneity as there is in the average Christmas pageant by children. And that's the case with this music, isn't it?
Well, I'm not sure I understand what's going on, Dan. I've covered a lot of these conventions, and this is the first one I've ever known of to be running ahead of schedule. Maybe I can find an answer. I am wearing a head cam tonight. Craig, why are you ahead of schedule? I never heard of it. This is Craig Fuller, who's the manager.
Listen, we're working very hard to maintain our schedule. We actually built it a little bit of time so that our folks out here can have some fun, get worked up a little bit before some of the main events coming along here.
Well, this may be an all-time first convention to run on schedule or even ahead of schedule.
We're trying.
All right. So that's it, Dan. They just got a little ahead of themselves, and they're just having a little music here to kind of get back on schedule so the vice president will appear at the proper time. Back to you.
I see. So they're using the music as a fill.
Yes, sir.
Well, you learn something every second down here. Ed Bradley's in the Florida delegation, where even in the Sunshine State, which both parties right now put solidly in the Bush-Quayle column, they're worried about the economy there, aren't they, Ed?
Yeah, in fact, Dan, I'm standing here with Senator Connie Mack, who was one of the 7 conservative Republicans who sent a letter to the president asking for a big tax cut as part of his proposal. Senator, it looks like that's what the president is going to announce tonight. He's going to call for a tax cut in January, we're told. Does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't surprise me. Sending that message, if you will, got us all involved in this discussion. I didn't really know and won't know until he says it exactly what's going to happen, but there's been that speculation all week now that there would be a call for tax cuts in his second term.
With the high unemployment you have in Florida, about 9%, what is more important in your state, the economy or family values?
I think the economy is what people want to talk about in my state. They want to talk about what's going to reinvigorate the economy, what's going to allow for the formation of new businesses and the creation of new jobs. I think that's the central theme.
And does a tax cut give you a problem with the deficit?
It depends on what kind of a tax cut we're talking about. The kind of tax cut should be geared towards the formation of capital, which will allow for investment.
Thank you very much, Senator. Dan, back to you.
Thanks, Ed. Connie Chung is in the Maine delegation. By the way, Maine Senator Bill Cohen was here for the convention for a few days. But I understand, Connie, in Maine that you're talking about reverse coattails helping the president in this election.
That's right, Dan. Senator Cohen, Maine probably isn't a major problem for George Bush, but the Northeast is. How how can George Bush try and capture those important states? And I think Dan just mentioned it's sort of a reverse coattail situation.
Well, I think he is going to have to rely upon the popularity of a number of key figures. In Massachusetts, obviously, Governor Weld is going to be very important to him. Massachusetts is always a difficult state for Republicans, but I think Bill Weld is immensely talented and popular. In New Hampshire, we've got Warren Ruttman, and Warren Ruttman is certainly one of the most popular figures in the country, not to mention New Hampshire.
Even though he's not running again.
Even though he's not running, he carries tremendous appeal for the voters, and I think his strong endorsement is going to be a big boost to President Bush. And I think throughout the Northeast, that's what the president has to rely upon, because he's going to be concentrating in some of the major states as far as population and delegate votes are concerned. So he'll have to depend upon those of us down in the trenches to work on his behalf.
Now, President Bush apparently is going to propose a tax cut in January. That's what he's going to say in his speech. What do you think of that?
Well, I think any proposal of tax cuts would have to be combined with a proposal for spending reductions. To simply say we're going to have a tax cut without more, I don't think would be a responsible course for us to follow. I think if the president's going to propose it, I'm confident he'll insist upon spending reductions, and then that makes some sense.
Thank you. Senator Bill Cohen of Maine. Back to you, Dan.
Thanks, Connie. Something new in politics, the fax wars. Charles Carroll is up in our CBS News anchor booth. And Charles, what's this fax war all about?
Well, it's about this. Bill Clinton is the failed governor of a small state. President Bush has changed the world, and now he will change America. If you've been paying attention, you've heard Republican delegates say these two lines over and over again at this convention, right there at in your own home. That's because they have been told to say them in fax messages slipped under every delegate's hotel room door in the middle of the night. This is today's daily line. That is what they call it, honest. It proposes these phrases for delegates to use when they're talking to reporters about President Bush today. Clear-eyed vision, strong plan, trustworthy, level-headed leader, war hero, family man, integrity, character, steadiness, trust. If you had just read these midnight bulletins every morning and then culled a few phrases from the speeches here, you could have skipped the whole convention. Are you ready? Bill Clinton is Slick Willie, married to a feminist who wants to let children sue their parents, promoting a radical plan to destroy the traditional family, favors abortion on demand, women in combat, single-sex marriages. Did inhale. Would appoint Mario Cuomo to the Supreme Court, redistribute wealth and raise taxes, wants to save the spotted owl but put American workers on the endangered species list. Can't be trusted, welfare state, Democrat Congress, liberal media elite. That's it. The convention in 30 seconds, and probably, Dan, a preview of the 1992 Republican campaign.
Thanks, Charles. Up on the podium now, Missouri Senator John Danforth is beginning to introduce Vice President Dan Quayle, George Bush's running mate for re-election. So he's getting close to the time when we'll be hearing the acceptance speech of Dan Quayle. So stay here with us right now. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.
Right now, all our furniture and mattresses are on sale at Sears and Sears Home Life stores. Get a Madison or Lancaster sofa or full-size sleeper for just $399.99. Everything's on sale through August 29th at Sears Home Life Furniture and most Sears stores.
If you suffer from an inflamed, itchy rash caused by eczema, psoriasis, or other skin irritations, you can get the relief medication formerly available only by doctor's prescription. It's the medicine in maximum strength cortisone 10. Look, cortisone 10 applied to this itchy rash gets under the itch for soothing relief and help in healing. See? The rash is gone. To relieve itchy rashes and skin irritations, use maximum strength cortisone 10 with the medicine doctors recommend most. Available without prescription.
Basically, I thought all toothpaste were the same. But then on a visit to my grandmother's, I tried her Arm & Hammer dental care. And wow, it was a special feeling, like a burst of clean. My mouth felt so clean and so healthy that it was just like leaving the dentist office. Then I heard that more dentists recommend Arm & Hammer than any other baking soda toothpaste. I see my dentist really often, but now I get that fresh from the dentist feeling every single time I brush.
Get Arm & Hammer Dental Care for that healthy, fresh from the dentist feeling of clean.
It's night and day the difference Correctol makes when I'm irregular. Correctol is the gentlewoman's laxative that works predictably overnight.
No wonder more women trust it.
Correctol, gently, predictably, overnight.
CBS News live coverage of the Republican National Convention will continue. President Bush came here for the bounce. Tomorrow we'll ask voters in the most typical town in the USA if he got it. Eye on America, only on the CBS Evening News.
From the day they fell in love to the night you fell in love with them.
We've got a hit on our hands called I Love Lucy.
But that was the Lucy and Desi you only thought you knew.
What do they have that I don't?
Based on their intimate, true story.
You happy, honey?
Very.
Me too.
I'm pregnant.
Lucy and Desi Before the Laughter, Saturday.
This is CBS.
Now's the time to buy a new car or truck. Well, you can't do better than your Ford dealer's factory authorized clearance. He's got 5, now 6 of America's top 10 sellers, and they're all clearance priced. Including the Ford F-150. It's the best-selling truck in the world. Now for just $299 per month. Equipped. It's the best time to buy a 92 car or truck at your Ford dealer. But hurry, the Ford factory authorized clearance ends soon, so see your local Ford dealer today.
Same burger, same bun, same fries, no fun.
Hey, you don't have to eat this stuff. You can go to Arby's for something different. Like a big regular roast beef sandwich and curly fries, only $1.99 for a limited time. Let's get a better look at all that lean, freshly sliced roast beef. Excellent. Now those irresistible curly fries. Get them both right now for just $1.99. Now, I'm gonna need extra ketchup.
Arby's is different.
Hey, different is good.
Do business with your neighbors and buy Tennessee first. Campaign 92, CBS News coverage of the Republican National Convention continues. Live from the Astrodome in Houston, Texas, here again is Dan Rather.
President Bush's motorcade is nearing the Astrodome area now in preparation for his acceptance speech later on. Before that will be Vice President Quayle's speech. Right now, let's go over to Illinois, another of the key battleground states, perhaps even more in this presidential election than it has been in some past. Ed Bradley's there. Ed?
Dan, I'm here in Illinois with former Governor Jim Thompson, who's one of the national co-chairs of the Bush-Quayle campaign. Governor, we're told that the president is going to propose a tax cut in January in his speech. Your reaction to that?
Well, depending on the kind of cut and the amount of the cut, it could be an effective stimulus to the economy. He will have to explain how he's going to pay for the cut, and I assume he'll balance it with a cut in spending. Depending on where the tax cut is and where the spending cut is, it could be an effective stroke for a recovering economy.
What's the most important issue in your state?
Most important issue in my state is the same issue that's most important for America. The fear of a great many American people that their jobs or their health care or their pensions or their kids' future are in trouble. George Bush tonight and for the next 64 days has to speak plainly and directly to those people, connect with them, make sure that he is proposing a program that they agree with and sells himself in the same way that he's able very successfully to sell himself in the international arena. That's the bottom line of this campaign. It's as simple as that.
Governor, thank you very much. Dan, what we're hearing more and more is that in addition to family values, more people are talking about the economy. Back to you, Dan.
Thanks, Ed. President Bush's motorcade has arrived at the Astrodome, and the president is getting out of his limousine. What they will do, of course, is take him through sort of the bowels of the Astrodome to a holding position probably just below the podium, although there are several other places in the building where he could go to rest before he makes his speech. And, of course, the Secret Service has a number of places they can take the president. And, of course, the idea, it's part of security, is not to let anybody know where he's going. But the president is arriving here early, say, in the past. Frequently, the presidential candidate accepting a nomination will wait a little later in the evening. But President Bush, whose confidence in his public appearances seems to have been rising by the hour in recent days, The most recent example was this morning at a prayer breakfast here in Houston, where he handled himself with a confident air, a gleam in his eye, and even a sense of humor. He's getting here plenty early. But before the president speaks, there will be the speech by Vice President Dan Quayle. Now, there's quite a bit of rumble on the floor of the convention about the speech last night by Marilyn Quayle. A number of the younger Republicans in the hall said while they liked Marilyn Quayle, they didn't think the speech actually would get the Republicans many more votes. But there were, I'd have to say, at least as many people I've talked to who just raved about Marilyn Quayle's speech. Jeb Bush is with his father tonight as the president walks into the hall. This is the second time this week that the president has been in the Astrodome. Those of you who were with us last night, of course, know that he made that, quote, surprise appearance with Barbara Bush. We say, quote, surprise, because while everybody was told that he was surprised to Barbara Bush, there's always some skepticism that those things are planned well in advance. Now, as we await President Bush arriving in his holding area, and as we await the time when Vice President Quayle will be standing and delivering his acceptance speech, let's take a break. But stay here with us. We'll be right back.
At Red Lobster, it's going, and soon to be gone. Our full pound of shrimp special. Whoops, overflowing your plate. A full pound of shrimp. There's so much, you may need a doggy bag. At Red Lobster.
I caught you doing 70.
Color Tile store-wide summer clearance is almost over. There's up to 50% off.
Vinyl tile, half price.
Ceramic tile, half price.
Mini blinds, buy one, get three free.
Wall covering, $2.99. DuPont Stainmaster carpet, up to 50% off.
Oh, wood floors, up to 50% off. Last chance.
Up to 50% off ceramic tile.
Vinyl floors.
And Stainmaster carpet.
Color Tile store-wide summer clearance.
Final week.
Coast to coast.
Save up to 50%.
Sale ends Monday.
At Sears Auto Centers, our commitment to your satisfaction has never been stronger. When you buy a Die Hard, we'll give you free emergency jumpstart service. When you buy Bridgestone road handlers, we'll give you free road hazard insurance. When you buy Sears shocks or mufflers, we'll give you a lifetime replacement warranty. And if you're not completely satisfied, we'll give you your money back. Nobody is more committed to your satisfaction than Sears.
For years, I've been eating this healthy, boring stuff because of...
Eating healthy, Stephanie?
The voice. Well, I've had it. I want taste, indulgence. Kellogg's Frosted Mini Wheats.
But, Steph, Frosted Mini Wheats are good for you.
Pay no attention.
There's whole grain wheat.
There's frosting.
No salt, and they're fat-free, see?
No, I don't see.
Kellogg's Frosted Mini Wheats. Surprise! They're good for you.
Ignore the voice. Enjoy the frosting.
Imagine a pillowy cushion of softness with every step you take. Dr. Scholl's 2-layer air pillow insoles. 1 layer for shock, 1 for comfort. Dr. Scholl's. You'll feel better when the doctor is in.
Bo loves CBS shows. Oh. Bo would love to have his own CBS show. Perhaps Major Bo. Or Northern Bo.
Yes!
Or Evening Bo. Bo just has one condition.
Okay.
Bo would like to star in 2 shows at one time.
I really care about what my daughters watch on television. That's why CBS Kid TV's a hit with me. With new shows coming up like Disney's The Little Mermaid and Fievel's American Tales. Quality, wholesome.
And they're way cool, too.
Kid TV on CBS Saturday morning. It's a hit with parents.
It's a hit with me.
Here on the floor of the Astrodome as we await Vice President Dan Quayle's appearance and his acceptance speech. Let's go to our CBS News consultant and former campaign manager for President Ronald Reagan, Ed Rollins. Ed, good to be with you again tonight. Vice President Quayle, in effect, has been called by President Bush the best qualified man in America to be president if anything should happen to him. But a lot of other people simply, let's face it, see him as a, quote, lightweight. What can he do tonight to help his reputation?
Well, obviously, the expectations are very low for his speech, so anything he does above and beyond the expectations is a plus. Clearly, he's the second act tonight. It's the president's speech that everybody's really anticipating. And I think just getting through a speech, basically reinforcing the kinds of concepts that his wife hit on last night is probably all that he can do.
Well, Ed, the vice president's campaign in 1988 was deemed by him and by Mrs. Quayle at least as a disaster. What should he do differently this time around?
He will have a much tougher campaign this time. A president normally stays above the fray and puts the vice president into the mix with both the vice presidential candidate and the presidential candidate. As you recall, George Bush had a terrible vice presidential campaign in 1984. So I think if Quayle thought he had a tough campaign last time, it's going to be much tougher. Equally as important, this time it's a generational jump. He pitted against Lloyd Bentsen last time. Nobody expected him to be in the same league. This is the next generation of politics. Gore and obviously Clinton are younger, and he's going to be compared to that generation.
And Vice President Quayle has just come out on the podium back there. There'll be a demonstration, of course, for him. By the way, the hall is absolutely packed tonight, all the way up to the high rafters. The Republicans have made sure that there's not an empty seat in the House, and quite frankly, given the enthusiasm here in Houston, I don't think that was difficult at all to do. But Ed Rollins, as this demonstration continues on, and we look at 45-year-old Dan Quayle, the 44th Vice President of the United States. Ed, how much drag on a ticket in the end is an unpopular vice presidential candidate?
Close election, it may be 2 or 3 points. The likelihood is that in this case, it's going to be a close election. So unlike 1988, Quayle could be a drag. I don't think he will be, because I think obviously the president's either going to get in this race, make it close, or they're not.
And do you expect to see a raised profile for Mrs. Quayle in the campaign? They gave her a prime position last night as a speaker.
I would expect both Mrs. Bush and Mrs. Quayle to play a very significant role, as the other Democrat wives, I think, are going to play a more significant role also.
Ed, in the end, was real consideration given to dropping Quayle?
I don't think by the president. I think there's an awful lot of people who thought he might add to the ticket.
He started speaking. We go to the vice president.
And friends around America, with gratitude and a sense of mission, once again, I accept your nomination as Vice President of the United States. Stronger, more confident, and more determined than ever to re-elect our great President George Bush. I know my critics wish I were not standing here tonight. They don't like our values. They look down on our beliefs. They're afraid of our ideas. And they know the American people stand on our side. And that's why when someone confronts them and challenges them, they will stop at nothing to destroy him. And I say to them, you have failed. I stand before you and before the American people, unbowed, unbroken, and ready to keep fighting for our beliefs. I come from Huntington, a small farming community in Indiana. I had an upbringing like many in my generation, a life built around family, public school, little league, basketball, and church on Sunday. My brother and I shared a room in our 2-bedroom house, and we walked to school together. This was life in small-town America. Our people were strong, and we believed in the traditional values of Middle America. Meryl and I have tried to teach our children these values, like faith in God, love of family, and appreciation of freedom. We have also taught them about family issues like adoption. My parents adopted twins when I was 10 years old. We've taught our children to respect single parents and their challenges. Challenges that faced my grandmother many years ago and my own sister today. And we've taught our children about the tragedy of diseases like breast cancer, which took the life of Marilyn's mother. Marilyn and I have hosted an annual event called the Race for the Cure of Breast Cancer. 2 months ago, 20,000 runners, men and women, young and old, joined us in our nation's capital to race for the cure. By leading the battle against breast cancer in memory of her mother, Marilyn has taken a family tragedy and turned it into hope for others. Like so many Americans for me, family comes first. When family values are undermined, our country suffers. All too often, parents struggle to instill character in their sons and daughters, only to see their values belittled and their beliefs mocked by those who look down on America. Americans try to raise their children to understand right and wrong, only to be told that every so-called lifestyle alternative is morally equivalent. That is wrong. The gap between us and our opponents is a cultural divide. It is not just a difference between being conservative and liberal. It is a difference between fighting for what's right and refusing to see what's wrong. Families can also be strengthened by empowering our people with low taxes, home ownership, parental choice in education, job training, safe streets, a clean environment, and affordable health care. In all of these areas, we have a reform agenda, and it's time for Congress to get out of the way and to pass the president's plan. Speaking of reform, our legal system is spinning out of control. The explosion of frivolous lawsuits burdens our economy and weakens our system of justice. America has 5% of the world's population and 70% of the world's lawyers. Now, I have nothing against lawyers. At least most of them. I'm a lawyer, and I'm married to a lawyer. When we worked our way through night law school, Marilyn and I looked forward with pride to becoming part of the finest legal system in the world. But today, our country has a problem. Our legal system is costing consumers $300 billion a year. The litigation explosion has damaged our competitiveness. It has wiped out jobs. It has forced doctors to quit practicing in places where they're needed most. Every American knows the legal system is broken, and now is the time to fix it. On competitiveness, which I chair, will continue to lead the charge against unnecessary federal regulations. We've worked to save jobs and to save lives. We've reformed the drug approval process to speed up the availability of new medicines for people with life-threatening diseases like cystic fibrosis, cancer, and AIDS. And what is the response of the Democrats in Congress? They've tried to kill the Council on Competitiveness, which stands up for the American people and against the bureaucrats and against the special interests. They think the Competitiveness Council should go. They don't get it. It's time for them to go. The Democrats in Congress can't run their own restaurant, can't run their own post office, can't run their own bank. They sure can't be trusted to run our country. I hope everybody who watched the Democratic convention noticed how they hid their congressional leaders. You couldn't find them anywhere. Maybe it was a slick idea to keep those Democratic congressmen and senators under wraps. But on election day, they're going to learn a hard lesson. You can run from a TV camera. You can even run from your own delegates, but you can't hide from the voters of America. Spend everything, block everything, do nothing Democratic Congress. It's time for them to go. Change Congress for good. Almost 16 years ago, in my first speech as a member of the House of Representatives, I proposed limiting the terms of Congress. The Democratic Congress tell us that it's good for the country to limit Ronald Reagan and George Bush to 2 terms as president. I say to them, if it's good for the country to limit Ronald Reagan and George Bush to 2 terms, then it would be great for the country to limit the terms of Senators George Mitchell and Ted Kennedy and the rest of that liberal Democratic crowd down there in Washington. None of the reforms I've just mentioned has any support from Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton talks about change, but he can't really change America because the special interests won't let him. He can't say a word, not one single word, about legal reform because the trial lawyers won't let him. He can't support school choice for parents because the education lobby won't let him. And he will not join the majority of Americans in supporting term limits because the Democrat Congress won't let him. And he can't fight for the traditional family because his supporters in Hollywood and the media elite won't let him. My friends, Bill Clinton and the special interests will never run America because we won't let them. Now, speaking of the media, for more than a month, the media have been telling us that Bill Clinton and Al Gore are moderates. If they're moderates, then I'm a world champion speller. We are the true voice for change, and we do not take our marching orders from the special interests. On behalf of legal reform and education reform, we've taken on the strongest forces of the status quo, and we will not back down. On behalf of deregulation and term limits, we've taken on the Democratic Congress, and we will not back down. And on behalf of family values, we've taken on Hollywood and the media elite, and we will not back down. It's been said and it's true that a leader gives his people character. And once again, America is going to choose a leader who has judgment, experience, and moral strength. 4 years ago, none of us knew that the Berlin Wall would fall, the Iron Curtain would be lifted, the Baltic nations would be free, communism would be dead and buried, the Soviet Union would cease to exist, and the threatening SS-18 ballistic missiles would be history. Nor did we know that we would be called upon to confront the aggression of a Middle East tyrant. But 4 years ago, we did know this. Whatever lay ahead, there was a clear choice to lead us. There was one man we could trust to guide our journey to a new century. And because we elected George Bush as our president, America is stronger and the world is safer. Listen to this. Now listen to this. In an attempt to establish credibility in foreign policy, Governor Clinton recently compared himself to former Governor Ronald Reagan. I know Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan is a friend of mine. And Bill Clinton, you're no Ronald Reagan. Democratic nominee calls America the mockery of the world. But he and his running mate are the only ones that believe that. To Governor Clinton, I say this. America is the greatest nation in the world, and that's one thing you're not going to change. These last 4 years, I've worked with a man who represents so much of what's good in our country. A man whose public and personal life are the embodiment of character. Every day in that Oval Office, I see the dedication of a husband, father, and grandfather, the self-reliance of an entrepreneur, the courage of a Navy pilot, the dependability of a loyal friend, the compassion of a man of faith, and the wisdom of the man who married Barbara Bush. George Bush has given us great victories abroad and performed great deeds at home. But as Theodore Roosevelt said, the greatest victories are yet to be won, and the greatest deeds are yet to be done. We will go on fighting for the values, the hopes, and the dreams of our people. We will take this campaign to every American and to every state. We will win because of our principles, we will win because of our beliefs, and we will build an America more secure in the values of faith, family, and freedom. In these difficult times, America needs the very best, the best in character, the best in leadership, and the best in judgment. And the very best is our nominee, our President, George Bush. Thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless America.
Year-old Dan Quayle demonstrating how much he has improved as a big hall public speaker over the 4 years that he's been vice president. Ben Johnson once said, "Language most shows a man. Speak, that I may see thee." And in that spirit, Dan Quayle has given one of his better performances here tonight. The latest CBS News polls indicate Mr. Quayle's approval rating is 20%, unfavorable 50%. He runs behind Senator Al Gore even among Republicans. His approval rating has never been higher than 33% in the poll. The Vice President has tried to position himself as the favorite for 1996 at the top of the Republican ticket by his loyalty to George Bush, although in this hall he runs far behind Jack Kemp in popularity among the delegates. The Quayle family coming out now for what in many newspapers will be one of two front-page pictures tomorrow. There, of course, will be President Bush, who will be giving his acceptance speech a little later on. His wife, Marilyn Quayle, and the three children, Tucker, 18, Benjamin, 15, Corrine, 13. Let's go over to Connie Chung, who is with one of the powers of this Republican convention, the Reverend Pat Robertson. Connie?
Thank you, Dan. You're right. He is one of the powers. In 1988, George Bush, 1 out of 5 voters who voted for George Bush was an evangelical. Pat Robertson, how do you think Dan Quayle did? Was he far right enough for you?
Listen, he was right on the money. I was looking for strength, and he showed it. He's matured enormously in these 4 years. This was a brilliant speech, and frankly, I think it probably got him the nomination for 96, assuming the ticket wins, and I think it will.
Has the party gone far right enough for you? I mean, there's a gay bashing that you brought up. I mean, there's some people who think that it's gone too far.
Well, Connie, I think really it's mainstream. You know, when we get down to faith, 80% of the people want prayer in schools, 94% believe in God. The percentages, I think, favor the platform, and I don't consider it right. I think it's pretty much center.
Thank you, Pat Robertson. Dan, back to you. Pat Robertson here, but you know what they say, you're no Dan Quayle.
We'll see.
Thank you very much, Connie Chung and the Reverend Pat Robertson. Our CBS News coverage from under the dome will continue live in just a moment, so stay here with us.
To hold that office as the only Republican woman attorney general in the nation.
Dad? Is your family trying to tell you something? Yes, Dentine now has more breath-freshening flavor. So brush your breath clean with great-tasting new Dentine.
Fido, Fido. Fetch Fido.
Is your best friend trying to tell you something? Yes, Dentine now has more breath-freshening flavor. So brush your breath clean with great-tasting new Dentine.
Trouble with heartburn? Well, you could change your diet. Or change your job. Maybe change your lifestyle. Or better still, reach for Rolaids. It absorbs acid fast to bring 100% relief to millions. So maybe you can't change your life, but you can get relief. In original and calcium-rich, Rolaids spells relief.
At universities like this, clinical studies prove there's a way to lose weight simply and effectively without caffeine or caffeine nervousness. It's Dexatrim. Dexatrim helps you control your appetite so you can lose weight without feeling hungry. And no other weight loss product has more published medical studies to show that it works. In fact, studies prove that 4 out of 5 people lost weight with Dexatrim. Now that's powerful proof.
Dexatrim, medically proven to help you lose weight.
CBS News coverage of the Republican National Convention in Houston, Texas will continue. Whether you're pro-right to life or pro-choice, you won't want to miss Sunday's 60 Minutes. Never have the battle lines been drawn so clearly.
Let's keep our eye on the big prize, people.
Before you reach 40, you think you have all the answers. After you reach 60, you know you have all the answers. And in between...
What do you dream about these days, Cindy?
I dream a lot that I'm making out in the car with Kevin Costner.
Are the Middle Ages. Premieres Thursday, September 3rd.
This is CBS.
A fine stereo system featuring digital components. A Food Lion grocery bag featuring the highest quality grocery items at extra low prices. If you want one of these, then you should use one of these. Because you can have this when you save a lot of this at Food Lion.
Brock's candies have been a family tradition for generations, and you'll find a wide selection of Brock's candies at all Food Lion stores, and you'll also find extra low prices.
Supreme. Pepperoni. Meat lovers. Mushroom. Veggie lovers.
With a choice deal from Pizza Hut, you get any medium specialty pizza and any medium one-topping pizza for only $11.99. So now everyone doesn't have to fight over what toppings to get.
Veggie lovers. Meat lovers.
Try the choice deal from Pizza Hut. With any medium specialty pizza and any medium one-topping pizza for only $11.99, it's easy to please everyone.
Delivery. Delivery.
Well, almost everyone.
Dine in, you fool. Delivery. Dine in. Delivery.
Do business with your neighbors and buy Tennessee first.
Campaign 92, CBS News coverage of the Republican National Convention continues. Live from the Astrodome in Houston, Texas, here again is Dan Rather.
Well, if you care about politics, if you like conventions, you know that there's a moment when the crowd really comes alive and the word, whatever the word is, spread. This crowd has come alive. The word is spread. The president is here. And that always gets people up right on the edge of their seats, and that's what's happening at this moment. Let's go up to our CBS News anchor booth and our two consultants, Kevin Phillips and Joe Klein. Kevin, first, what major themes was Vice President Quayle trying to get across, and can he make those themes work?
Well, I think it was trying to get across two principally. The first is the success that America's had in foreign policy, which has been a theme that's really started to emerge here. And then, of course, the principal one is his family values and cultural war against the media and Hollywood elites theme. And what fascinates me about this is that it's continuing to be done, even though the most fascinating aspect is the way as the vice president makes these speeches, his poll ratings have actually gone down. If you look at the genesis of middle American politics in the Republican Party, it's usually worked. But when Dan Quayle makes the speech, somehow it doesn't. When he attacked the program Murphy Brown, they ran a trial heat between Dan Quayle and Candace Bergen for president, and she beat him. And I have the sense that in some respects, these lines and these attacks are becoming a caricature. And that may explain the fact that he has such low ratings with what should be such popular material.
Well, Joe Klein, Pat Buchanan on Monday talked of what Jack Kemp and others later called a kind of, quote, religious or cultural war. Now, Kevin Phillips just used a similar phrase to describe the Dan Quayle attack. Where is the indication that this is working, that this is convincing people to vote for Bush Quayle?
Well, you know, Dan, I keep on thinking about this sign that they have on the wall at Clinton headquarters in Little Rock. It says, "The economy, stupid," which means it's the answer to every question. What's our message? What's the most important issue in this campaign? And it strikes me, it's very striking, that throughout these last 3 nights, we haven't heard very much about the economy. Indeed, it could be said that the Republicans have said as much about the economy as the Democrats said about foreign policy. And the problem is that most voters think that the economy is the main issue in this campaign. And so now, going into George Bush's speech tonight, he's going to have to lay it out for us, lay out his vision of the next 4 years, lay out his feelings on the economy, and do it with a confidence that tells us that he really believes it. After all, this is a guy who once admitted that he gets more of a kick out of foreign policy than he does out of domestic policy, and we have 4 years of perceived inaction on domestic policy for him to overcome. It's a big hurdle, Dan.
Well, very quickly, Kevin Phillips, the president is going to say that he will cut taxes if reelected. Should that be considered a bombshell, fireworks, or a dud?
Well, I don't think it's a bombshell. We're not sure what it's going to be. He was going to cut middle-class taxes back in the early part of 1992 and then walked away from it in New Hampshire, and Pat Buchanan challenged him. His record on cutting taxes is now he promises it and then he doesn't deliver it. The one thing that you can count on him to cut if he has a chance is capital gains. But that benefits the people at the top 1%. The Democrats will fight that cut. And the question is, will George Bush actually cut taxes for the ordinary American, which is more debatable.
Kevin Phillips, Joe Klein, thanks. As Senator Bob Dole begins to introduce President George Bush, we'll take a break. Be right back.